5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
Joker out. Joker ammo.
Welcome one and all. The engine upgrade beta. It is real. And it is not fake. Here are the lads. Oh, we've already started. And I've already died. Oh, I'm not got grenades. I can still see you. Remember, guys, this is not the final product. This is not the final product. Die! Hey, I got Solali. Not having grenades is an issue. I was thinking to myself, I want to throw a grenade, and then I pressed the key. It's not happening. I got Bojo. God damn it. I can't aim. Do that. I just hit my teammate. The RTX out of memory. I think Matt can answer that one. Oh, it's already been answered by Com. It's been fixed, apparently. I can't test it, so. Unfortunately, not having an RTX card, it hurts when we want to test something like that. Where am I being shot from? Ah! What I wouldn't give for some grenades. I just want grenades. Don't see me. Boxers or briefs? Neither. It's all about them trunks. Can I do a side-by-side? We'll have a side-by-side in Q&A. I have some comparisons to give you an idea. I'm just trying to find an enemy to kill. My tracking. Jesus. Is this pre-recorded? No. I could show you by just going like... But it kind of defeats the purpose. Double kill! Yes! I did it! He didn't die! Am I British? No, I'm Irish. Got Bojo. Any date of the 2... No! 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 See, I can get a kill. Alright, guys. Get your questions out. We're about to have some fun. Hello guys, how are you? Well, back again anyway. Let's start off with an easy question. How are you, Matt?
I think I'm feeling a little better. We made it through this. I thought this could have gone incredibly horrible. We had a couple crashes. It is what it is. This was, you know, I knew this was a little risky because we're showing off a bunch of unfinished work. So pretty good.
Yeah. How is everything in terms of sort of our progress, really? How far do you think we're along with what we've been streaming today?
Sure. I think there's different categories, right? So if we break it down, we've got what I would say like visual categories, which have, we've spent a lot of time trying to pull apart a lot of the unfinished work. And before we get started, I just want to throw a nod to Reloaded Productions and just all the work they put into this. This was a Herculean effort. I know they didn't finish, but really a lot of our stuff would not be possible but for the work they did. So I would say, so visually, a lot of work been done there, all new lighting, tons of rewriting, tons of rebaking things. I would say audio is completely not touched. I think we heard some scuffed audio today, so that needs a lot of work. Rendering wise, I'm happy with the render itself. I just saw the mention of the pink headset. No, I that was Razer's headset, so I had to give it back. But the rendering wise, the new renderer is hands down faster, multi-threaded rendering. All of the FPS slowdowns we saw today are purely related to UI or to game loop issues. So that's what we're optimizing now, is just getting some of the game loop elements that are related to the missions. Or the reason we're not doing financial today was because of some of that stuff that it just grinds to a halt right now. So we're fixing some of that stuff.
Okay. So you were talking about in the chat as well. You were talking about how currently the FPS is not where we want it to be. Do you want to try and go into that a little bit?
Sure. I was gonna see. Let's see here. There we go. I'm looking at a couple of. I was gonna see if we could just jump back into Asylum. And
we can indeed, yeah.
You could just show some frame rate with Asylum not running the mini game and sort of empty. Because I think, like, I know you and I are on comparable systems. I run an RTX 2080, and on the highest settings, it's upwards of 200 frames per second when we're not running the mini game. I know you might be slightly slower than that, but I think the speed is definitely there. Like I said, when it's empty. I saw someone ask a question. So when I refer to game loop, I'm referring to all the underlying code that the client is managing when you're doing a mission or a mini game. We've got a bunch of HUD elements that are on the screen, and it's doing a lot of ray casting to figure out where people are to give you the appropriate options and things like that. So that's what's kind of dragging us down right now. It's not the rendering itself, but kind of the gameplay elements. I saw someone mention the 2080. Definitely in live. Live is a 32-bit client. One of the big things we had to fix recently is we have a lot of alignment issues. So there was code that was written at 4-byte alignment, and then 8-byte alignment, and then 16-byte alignment, 16-byte alignment being more 64-bit. And so when systems would try to interact with each other, the alignment's off and it crashes. So the 2080 in live right now has a lot of problems, and we've done our best to fix them. Some of them are driver related, but it's very smooth. I think SKay, you're running an RTX as well, aren't you?
Oh, I'm running a GTX 1080 Ti.
A GTX, right? You've got we both have the Ryzen chipset.
We do, yeah. I have an 1800X, but you have a newer CPU than I do.
Yeah. We NVIDIA was nice enough to donate some 2080s to the studio, so a number of the developers have been testing on that full time to make sure we work the kinks out there.
So you are live with Asylum.
Excellent. Do you want to put the frame rate on screen here? We'll see what kind of frame rate you're getting while we're not running the mission and don't have a bunch of. I don't know how many other players are actually.
There's 0 players in this session right now, so you're good to go.
Go for it. Let me put the frame rate up, and there we go. So I think what you'll notice is the frame rate is considerably higher when we're just sort of running around the district and we're not running a mission or not running a bunch of UI elements. This varies a little bit. SKay's running what we call uncapped, so he's got VSync turned off. He's got smooth frame rate turned off, and that's what that does is just unlocks the frame cap there. What most people notice as frame rate lag is actually the change in frame rate, right? So if you're sitting at 100 and you drop to 60, that's going to look like lag. If you're sitting at 60 and you drop to 40, it's going to look like frame lag. And so what we want to do is have the highest possible frame rate, but have it be as consistent as possible, so people don't see that.
Cool. I was just
frame rate's actually so small. You'll see it hop around. We can. We'll talk a little bit about benchmarks and things like that.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I saw the most was that the stability was quite good. How are you feeling about this? The stability of the game in comparison to live? I know live does have a lot of issues with regards to the garbage collector and having to do stuff with that, and it hiccups the game essentially.
Yeah, a lot of stutters and hitches on live, which is just stuff we inherited there. One of the big goals of the engine upgrade was to just smooth all that out, and we've been able to do that. So I think regardless of the frame rate, I was on Pound Stream earlier and popped into a couple others. It feels really smooth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And are you hoping that we probably will raise the ceiling in both the maximum FPS that we can gain and sort of the minimum, sort of the 1s and 0.1%?
Yeah, we're hoping, like right now, and that's probably a good segue once we get through a little more. Do you want to run outside and run around the edge area? Because I think one of the big things in the engine is just the view distance and how we're handling some of the things, even the unplayable areas of the game. Once we show off financial, I think we'll see more of that. We're not going to do financial in this stream, but view distance is a big difference between live and the new engine, and it's something we had to take into account when we were talking about settings. So technically speaking, very high on the new engine is actually not equal to maximum on live because the view distance is about 3 times farther. So you have to manually kind of switch your view distance and run very high, I think, to get apples to apples. But yeah, there's the way the LOD system works in the engine. You're seeing just a lot more high fidelity farther away.
Perfect. Now, coming to fidelity, sort of on the high end and the low end, what can we expect in terms of the high end? So, for people who are running these crazy systems that are able to push 400 FPS, and the lower end players who are not able to push 60 FPS.
I will say this: I think we've focused it on the high. We've focused a lot on the high end right now. I know that SKay runs benchmarks every build, and he's been great. That's actually why I'm doing the stream with SKay today, is because he's been so instrumental in the benchmark side of things. And admittedly, we've been focusing on the high end of things because that's what we just want the engine to perform. we need to do some optimization at the mid-level. We've started improving the settings at kind of medium quality and even low quality so that you're still getting a good gameplay experience, but the game doesn't look just completely like Play-Doh. So definitely some more work to do for the lower, let's say the lower end systems and the medium level systems.
So in regards to current, so to lean on to that, to the high and low, what can we expect to see for people who are currently sort of upset, not upset, but they're not too happy with how the game looks? It is a very old game, is coming on to 10
Sure.
years this year. You know, are we expecting to see any upgrade in terms of fidelity, in terms of car textures?
Those are great questions. I'm of two minds, right? I want the game to look as good as it can look. We're not going to get PBR rendering in this engine. It's just not something that Unreal 3.5 was designed to do. There has been some upgrades here. I think you guys can see upgraded textures and better normal maps and some other things here. To me personally, I'm all about let's just ship the game. There's so many benefits in the engine outside of the fidelity. It does look a little better. The lighting is a completely different lighting model, but I'd rather just get it into players' hands because the unified code base makes it so much easier to work with. We've got some kind of fun ideas about getting console players into social alongside PC players and being able to use the economy back and forth and the customizations, which are harder to do on console and easier to do on PC, and having them kind of transfer back and forth. There's a lot of benefits in the engine in general. I'm tempted not to over noodle the visuals right now and just get it into the players' hands. I noticed the big one, and I know this came up in a couple other streams, and as the estimate of when the new engine will go live permanently. I think it's going to go in stages. We specifically have spent a lot of time on social and Asylum because they were the closest, and so we kind of wanted to get those done. I mean, it's a very big game, as everybody knows. It was more than $100 million spent on this, and so rather than try to do everything at once and hit a home run and have it continue to take so long, we're going to release to the general public the open beta with Asylum and with social, and we're going to do that for a couple reasons. Just we need to get more large-scale testing for districts so that we can continue to optimize things like frame rates with more characters, in the game and that sort of thing. And so stage one is to get this, what you're seeing here, the beta, into the hands of players, which will have Asylum and the social, and give us a little bit of chance to finish up the work on Waterfront and Financial. And then as a second release, we're going to do iterations of that, and then the next stage would be to release Financial and Waterfront in beta, and kind of tweak those out. Obviously, we can throw Crate and some of the other districts in there too at that point. And then the third stage will be to transition everybody, right? So when everybody goes to go download, it will patch 2.1, and everybody will be cut over running 2.1. I will say this: we have one blocker right now, and it's a good problem to have, but our servers are fairly full. So even for this, we had to kind of set aside resources to run this beta, and we're looking towards that timeline of when we want to open the beta to everybody. And one of our big blockers is just we need more servers because we're kind of capping out what we have right now in live.
Mm-hmm. Are there any plans for UI changes, or will the game keep its current look?
So I'm going to give the same kind of look. We changed the time of day there. I'm going to give the same kind of answer. I think with UI, we're going to keep the same kind of look. I don't want to go into that rabbit hole. There are plenty of optimizations I would love to do because I think there's just places in the UI we could streamline and make a lot more easy to use. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole and delay the game any longer than it's been delayed. I think part of the purpose of the weekly blog is to just show you guys like what we're doing, and we're not just sitting on this, wasting everybody's time or pretending like we're working on it. Like the vast majority of the team spends every day working on this.
Will the netcode improve with the current engine, as you are saying? Everybody's working on it. So will the tangible benefits be client side and server side? Yeah,
you'll see a lot of server side enhancements. The server side on 2.1 has had a ton of work on it, and it is actually a lot of different features in there. I can't say that we're completely clear of that. I think we did get some reports, even I think in last night's playtest, of some ghost shots with some specific guns and things like that. So there's some work to be done, but I believe it's better than live. We got a lot of optimizations in there. So yeah, both sides. Mainly on the server side, I think we've talked about some of the benefits coming, which are the district allocation system. So we can talk about that a little bit if we want, but just getting into matches and how we're going to distribute players. There's a ton of work that's been done on the server side to make that whole process better.
I think we can talk about the district access, and we can go down that rabbit hole a little bit and see what your thoughts are on that.
Fair,
because it is a rabbit hole in the sense that everybody can have their own sort of thoughts about it. Really,
sure. I think what's interesting is I think when Reloaded had the game, there was this effort to just kind of keep it running, right? You're dealing with something that is aging, and they certainly put content in, but I think the focus was primarily to just keep it running. We had to make some very tough choices, and I know even back in the May and November timeframes, we dismantled our network to fix a bunch of DDoS issues. We paid the price for that. It was horrible, I will say, just straight up horrible. We had a lot of problems transitioning networks, a lot of servers that hadn't been touched in 5 years. But that's paying off for us now. I actually think that our performance in live in terms of anti-DDoS has been incredible. We've kept the servers up. We've had very little problems, and I think hopefully the players have noticed that just the availability of the servers across the board has been better. When it comes to threat and matchmaking, I'm sure that's everybody's biggest beef. And so one of the things that it's not going to lie, that it won't launch immediately with the beta, but it's the next major thing we're putting in, and a ton of work has been done server side for this for 2.1, and that is the way districts will expand and collapse. So in off-peak times, we're actually going to be dynamically scaling the threat levels so we can get everybody either onto one server or multiple servers, but basically reducing contracting how threat works so you can get matches. And then during peak times, we're actually going to be subdividing threat even further than it is now, so that we're getting very, very closely matched players on each district. And that's part of what we call district allocations. It's in the new system. But this idea of being able to scale dynamically and get people to the right server so that they're getting matched a lot better. There's a lot of questions, I think, in the chat about the tutorial, and just straight out, that needs work. Our new player experience needs work. I would ask everybody, in the community, we're certainly growing. We're getting thousands of new players a day right now. Please be kind to these players. A lot of them have no idea what they're doing. They're going through that god-awful tutorial, coming out of the tutorial with no idea about progression and how roles work with weapons and how to really play the game. And I think that is something we have to address. But I'm really looking for the community to help us out in the meantime, just in the short term, where we need to finish what we're doing with the engine upgrade, get the matchmaking sorted, and then just go through and take a hatchet to the current tutorial and rebuild that, I think, from the ground up, because you don't really walk away from the tutorial knowing anything about the real game. I mean, you get like a character mod, you don't even get a gun mod or understand that sort of progression that is so crucial to getting better in the game.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the fact that grenades are hidden behind the tutorial system. That is one of the worst elements. Unfortunately, I don't want to throw shade at Reloaded. Those guys, man, they took a beating doing this game, and they largely did a great job. It just there are some things we definitely have to fix. I would love to put the old login music in and the old login screen again. These are all amazing things that I'm totally on board with. I just feel like we got to fix the big problems. For the last 2 years, when we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary, it feels like we've been doing open heart surgery on a patient that is running on a treadmill. It's very difficult to keep a game running and do work on it at the same time. But the work we've been doing with the Joker system and the Joker store, Armis kind of changes across the board there, and now with this engine upgrade and server side stuff, it's just we're slowly getting there. I think we're starting to see some of the benefits from all of that behind the scenes investment. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a long grind. I mean, the team has worked incredibly hard. It's great. I love when people say, look, thank you guys for doing so much work. My job is to convey that back to the team. Obviously, I'm involved, but it's really everybody behind me that should get the credit for that.
And with credits due from my side, anyway, it's I would like to give my thanks to the team for sticking it out as they have.
I also do want to thank all the streamers who participated today. I think we had around 19, 20 different folks that got involved. Some of them SBT that maybe didn't stream, but there were a lot of last minute hiccups. There was a lot of tolerance and flexibility from the streamers as they had to re-download builds and get set up. And I think they did an amazing job dealing with crashes or potential problems. And so thanks guys. I think they all took time out to make this happen for the community, and it was important to us.
Perfect. Let's move on to something more about what makes APB really that bit more special, the customization.
Yeah. Do you want to jump into social?
Yeah, we can jump on my character if you want. That's the most customized.
Yeah. I did see some stuff in chat asking about new content. We're not planning new districts, and by the way, I have seen the fan-made Midtown. It's coming along quite nice. It's an impressive amount of work that he's done on that. So we're chatting. I don't want to put any illusions out there in terms of like us taking that and putting it in the game. It's a great project, and I am following it. And look, if it's viable at all to put that content in the game, then it's something we'll definitely look at. But I think right now the important part is to not add new districts. I want the current districts to be populated so people can progress roles and rank, and I think splitting people off into new districts would be maybe a bad idea. That's definitely something I want to do down the road. But the main new content we're doing is 2 new contacts, which will be at the final launch of 2.1. We're introducing the EMP. I think we've talked about that. We're introducing new clothing. So there's definitely stuff coming. There is a car in the works. So there will be some new content. I don't want everybody to over focus on the new engine. We know we need to get some new stuff in the game.
And speaking of new content, it's a personal question of mine, but would you wager that content being implemented into the new engine and beyond, would that be easier, or would that be on the same level of difficulty, relatively speaking?
The tools, look, APB, there's nothing like it. The customization system's unique for a reason, and that does make the content really tricky. The content has to be produced at a high level. We've been getting better at it. I would say some of our earlier attempts were C+, B-, but the team has fully gotten their head around that whole process. So I think as stuff continues to come out, it's going to be better and better. But I don't know if it's any easier, to be honest. The new tools are great in the new engine, but it's still, there's just a lot of work getting new content in the game. It has to fit so many different formats and body types, and everything has to kind of work in the system. So there's just a lot of work there.
I think we're about ready to show off some of the social bits and bobs. I think you'll be happy to see some of the streamers have come and made a comeback.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Let's have a look.
Oh, look at this. We got the whole team. Awesome. Look at everybody. That's great. Thank you, everybody. You can kind of see a little bit of what the customizations look like in the new engine. I will say this. I think the texture crispness is better. We definitely, some of the elements in the game are done with, they're not vectors, but they are stuff that benefit from up-res sizes. And so the fidelity of characters definitely looks better in my opinion. Look at you guys jumping around in there. So we can run around and have them jump around in the background here. Thank you guys for all the help today. We on the next one, to be fair, we did tell the guys they could not use their mains, or that we've been importing characters from live to make sure everything will port across. And so the guys definitely wanted a chance to show off some of the customizations and fun stuff, but they didn't get to do that during the match. We were worried about it dragging the frame rate and causing unexpected problems, so we didn't do that this time. Yeah,
and I will give a shout out to Witch Queen, by the way, who has "Hi Mom" on the back of his shirt.
Where's right on?
Do we want to go start off with the clothing customization, then we'll move on to vehicles and see?
Yeah, I mean, I think just running around social, we didn't show this off a lot during the streams. A lot of upgraded lighting here. We can change the time of day a little bit and kind of show this off, but lots of very lots of hard work in here, and I know I talk about it on the blog every week. We're mostly done with lighting and polish and things like that. So I would say, from my perspective at least, that social is pretty good to ship. I think Asylum's mostly good to ship. There definitely are a couple areas in there I still want to patch up that we found that just needed to be reworked, from UI, UVs to some of the other stuff. But these two districts are getting pretty close. The financial and waterfront aren't quite as far along, but I don't want to hold the beta back up for those.
And with the sticking on the customization, how expandable is the systems once we do move to the new engine? How can we see in the future? Can we see new methods of actually applying primitives onto a character, for instance?
That's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you. I think, what's nice is when we unify the whole code base, we can make the investment there. It's worth making the investment because we know all the players on every platform are going to benefit from it, and we want to do that. I think. There we go. Got a new time of day going. I will say this. I also want to call or give a shout out to Branderson for sending over some of the old real-time world screenshots and lighting from different times of day. We couldn't match them exactly, but we did want to try to give them a nod and lean into a little bit of that lighting. So what we have here, actually, what we're displaying, someone asked what's happening under the chin or some of that stuff. This is indirect lighting, and it's definitely one of the big upgrades for 3.5, where we're able to place lights around the level. Those are dynamic to start, but then as we bake things out, it makes rendering a much more full lighting palette look. It looks way better, and it runs at a decent frame rate. If you try to run this just as pure dynamic lights, it would just grind to a halt. So it is fake indirect lighting. Is very accurate, actually. It's not inaccurate, but it's meant to do that so that it runs faster.
I just got timed out putting in a code.
Uh-oh.
Let's stick with customization and try and go on to the day-night cycle, and especially with how it is currently in the game, in the live version of the game. Is that going to be expanded, or is it going to stay the same?
Someone mentioned earlier weather, and the engine has support for weather. It's something we'd like to do a little more of, so that on random days you'll see a little bit more variation in the lighting and in the time of day. It's the whole system's actually called our weather system internally, so it was always designed to have a little more variation in what we could do, so people aren't constantly staring at the same day-night cycle.
The same day-night cycle being in live, where it just goes from day to night instead of just having any sort of impactful weather effects like rain.
Correct. Like shifting into a rain or shifting into a cloudy day as opposed to bright days. You can see another time of day change there. I noticed on police lighting, I'm going to say I think that is upgraded already in the new engine. I don't quote me on that, but I know we've done a lot of work in terms of car lighting in general. And so, Dis Pizza there, I know you've spammed that question. That's absolutely going to get looked at. The question is basically, are we looking to adjust the rank lock modifications? And because a lot of mods and equipment are locked and lower rank players can't get them, and that's absolutely a problem. I think if you guys have followed me on Twitter, I've been highlighting a little bit of some recent videos that were pointed out, and it's just something we need to make the game more new player friendly. I think because they do come in at a bit of a disadvantage.
And that leads back into sort of upgrading the tutorial and all that kind of stuff, and trying to make it a lot more intuitive to actually play the game instead of just being this is how you do something. Yeah. That's funny. Someone's asking why I'm on Skype. We tried Discord the last couple. When I streamed with Kempington, we used Discord and some other things, and the frame rates were bad. I think the quality was bad there. So we tried. We're just trying Skype this time. This is all work in progress, by the way. We're sort of making it up as we go. A lot of members of the community wanted to see a little more interaction from the dev team. So that's we're trying out Skype this time. See if it works a little better. It does seem to be working a good bit better now. I can actually see you in HD.
Yeah.
XO says bring back junk clouding, which brings me on to my next question. Actually, will there be any plans for weapon balancing past the engine upgrade? Well, we know that it will happen, but more so, are we looking into bringing back some old favorites?
I can't really. I don't know. I think I feel like we've been bitten by that bear trap. We jumped into weapon balance too soon. Made some bad choices there. I think I'm fairly happy where it's at. I think we brought it back to at least a decent level. I know EXO is really about jump scouting, and I do want to bring back some of the out of bounds, allowing players who are not in missions to just kind of have fun and go out of bounds. I think there's no harm in that. So it's something we've been toying with. But I can't speak to the other stuff.
Cool. Do you want to show off the vehicle editor, and we'll get some more questions?
Yeah. Great.
Perfect. Yeah. So the question I think I want to ask now that I have had to think about it: when the engine upgrade gets put in, and we go past the initial shock of getting the engine upgrade out to people and people getting used to the new norm,
right?
Will there be an appreciable difference for people, let's say, to how well the game can run, especially on non-standard hardware? Like, for instance, remember during the current game we've had the RTX crashes, especially for new tech. Will the engine upgrade be more resilient to stuff like that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, a large part of what's happening right now with graphics cards is they're being moved to 64-bit. So we're seeing the same problems that the main live engine has. That's going to proliferate. We're going to see more of that. And so, like, internally, I know we're on a clock. There's no option to not ship the new engine, because the more graphic cards that come out, the more computers get upgraded. The live game is going to perform worse and worse. We have a lot of systems now with a lot of cores and a lot of processors that are slower. Each individual processor is slower than what we used to have, and so that's where the current live version of the game just falls down. It can't take advantage of all those cores. So I'm very happy. This is a bit of a different look. I think people are looking at the car editor and the customization editor in general. The backdrop's kind of been changed. We kind of wanted to put a little bit more of a spotlight on what you're designing. Load times are a lot faster in here. I personally think the cars look a little better in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, looking at this right now, I can actually see a lot more detail on the actual symbols themselves. That's the main thing that I'm witnessing right now, and this is my first time actually seeing this. So
yeah. Definitely fidelity on the symbols is a tad better. At the end of the day, we still have to bake that out to a texture, so there are some limits on what we can do. But I think players will hopefully see some improvement there.
We'll get a few more of the Q&A questions from the streamers. Do you have any plans on doing map balancing or changing of sections of maps that already exist? So, for instance, stuff like choke points when you find out. Waterfront. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know that we're going to look. I mean, Real Time World did a great job on the vast majority of financial. Those are, each block is its own mini map. I don't know that I want to tweak with that a whole lot. I think they spent a lot of work there. I think Waterfront needs some work in certain areas, but I think we're going to have to be pretty judicious about that. I don't want to create dependencies. So, like, I don't want to say, oh, we have to finish this before we release the engine. I just want to get the engine out. So many benefits there, and then we'll continue to iterate. It doesn't stop there. That's really just where we get started. And to some comments in the chat here, just know that we've dialed in a lot of the materials. Some of the materials we have not dialed in. So there are still props in Asylum you guys probably saw that were not lit properly or didn't have the right material settings. They didn't look like rubber, for instance, for the tires on here, or certain things. So we're still dialing in some of that. There's just a lot to do there. So we're getting there.
I think we need to ask this question. Do you have any idea of when it'll be released?
I don't want to avoid this question. I think it's a critical question. In fact, the truth is, as soon as humanly possible. There was, in the back of my mind, there was a fantasy of releasing it today and just saying, hey, everybody go have at. It's not there yet. it would be a disaster if we released it today. We still have crash bugs. We still have a little bit of work to go. I would say that we are closer than we've ever been. I like how both these districts are coming along. I think that we've got to fix the UI slowdown, and we've got to fix the performance game loop kind of issues. But we're close. I know that the meme, the sort of soon TM. I want to avoid that, but I would say we're within weeks, not months. So I think we're getting very close.
Perfect. So with
by the way, we should probably mention that a lot of this was ported right out of Live. I mean, we basically took a lot of your stuff, moved it right into the new engine, and the whole purpose of this was to try to feel out how much of it would come across smoothly.
I see a lot of soon TMs in the chat. It's just like, yeah, I've heard this before.
no way to there we go. Weeks TM. I like that.
Yeah,
there's no way to get away from that. We try to be as transparent as we can. The reason for the blog, I want you guys to know, like, we're not holding this up. I don't want to create any barriers to getting the engine out. I want it out. I want it in the community's hands, mainly because there's so many benefits to it outside of the look. It's got a lot of very good optimizations in it.
Now here's kind of a jokey question to kind of get us laughing, but do you use conditioner for your beard?
I do nothing for the beard, to be honest. I wish I could say I had some secret. And to be fair, I saw some comments in the chat. I could not grow facial hair till decent facial hair till I was about 32, and even at 32, very, very far from growing a beard. I was on a crunch working with the developers a number of years ago, and when I'm on crunch, I don't shave, and so I've kind of kept it ever since. And so it purely accident. I wish there was a secret to it. There's not.
Oh, that's a good question that somebody raised. The auto sprint feature that people are putting into the game, so they're using a config to be able to enable auto sprint. Yeah, will that become an actual toggleable option? I know you've talked about this before, where you want the user to be able to actually do the things that you really deem as necessary to be able to enjoy the game to the fullest. So quality of life features like auto sprint, kind of thing. Will that come with the new engine?
The hope is yes. Again, I'm not going to hold it back, but very quickly, we want to get everything that we want players to be able to do. We want it in the settings. We don't want people to have to edit configs. I will say this. I mean, the config file, there's one main config file. Editing that config file is basically what you do with the settings editor in game, right? So when you're choosing settings, it's writing that out to a file, editing the file. That's going to still be possible. However, the new engine encrypts and locks down 95% of the files. So there will be a lot less that you can do with this new engine than you could do with Live. It's not even possible. So the idea is to just put what we want into settings, and that way everybody will have access to it. Things like auto sprint and poor Pound. I know he plays with that config and was severely gimped today. We didn't want to mess with that today. We nearly opened that up, but today everybody played no configs. Everybody played equal. So, but the goal is to also do that for the new engine. Just let's get it all in the setup and the settings.
Do you think we will see an expansion of the current modes we have? So we have Action District right now, we have Fight Club. Will there be any expansion to something like Demolition Derby? I know somebody's asked that in the chat twice, actually. They asked that a few minutes ago and then a minute ago. But what are your thoughts on expanded game modes for APB?
Yeah, one of the things we're engaging with, it's a little bit of a skunkworks project on the side, but we're digging through all of the old missions, all the old content to see what we can polish up. We also built, I want to say, about 10 subsystems for Riot mode that are just really cool outside of the mode itself. But they're just things that we'd love to build new mission content around that could be really fun to play with. The Racing District, of course, comes up a lot, and it's something that I absolutely want to do, but it's on the list, right? So certainly I think it's a great idea. It's just something we need to get to, and there's a couple other competing things in the way right now, mainly matchmaking. I mean, we've got to throw in almost all of our resources post post-engine upgrade launch on matchmaking. The district allocation system phasing is in there. That's a big one, to be able to kind of phase people in and out of instances to balance things a little better. But I mean, to me, I feel like the character customizations, which is one of the biggest key features of the game, are really highlighted in the new engine. I think they look gorgeous. The new lighting also kind of highlights them, but I'm very, very happy with how stuff is translating out of live into the new engine. I think players are going to be happy with all their customizations porting across seamlessly.
We actually are on the customization, the character customization right now. You can see that,
Yep.
and being able to actually see this. I mean, the current editor is good, but it's just that this current one has a lot more color and a lot more vibrance. I think.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It has a much more broader range of lighting, and I think that is. It does look really. It does give the main benefit for players is that they're able to enjoy the game more. They're able to enjoy the eye candy and the things that they grinded and played for. Really.
Yeah. So I'm glad that ultimately I know everybody else was running Asylum and kind of, having fun in that mode. I wanted to take some time, focus on the editors and the customization stuff in this part of the stream, just because I feel like it's really good. I'm very proud of it. Worked really hard on making this, making the upgrade look good. Someone mentioned private districts, and I do want to give a nod today to, I hope the streamers had a good time. I know it's a kind of a good feeling to be in a district playing against competitors where you know that everybody's using the same configuration. No one's using anything different, and our goal is really that every player gets to have that experience. We're really looking on working on ideas and things where we can try to get that experience, because that's when people, I think, have the most fun, right? If you're doing missions and hey, everybody's on equal footing, then that's a pretty good time. I don't know if we can do private districts, but certainly that topic has come up with respect to esports and some other things. We work really hard on the cheats, the anti-cheat, and our ability to detect cheats, the reporting system, and things like that. I'm not going to even pretend that we're perfect. No game is, but it's just something we continue. Oh, it looks nice. Something we continue to do.
I thought you appreciate that, Hyphen.
Yeah, it's the different materials, right? So.
Is it possible for you to make your inventory unlimited with a search bar? I think that was one of the next things.
That's inventory is a problem right now. I know we need to do some extending, and there is a quality of life project that's already been designed and worked on that I think will rework inventory in a very, very positive way. I'm not going to go into details on this stream, but there is a solution coming. It's not necessarily about extending the inventory. I think that's fine. Adding more inventory is great. I think searching the inventory, getting to the inventory in a different way, shifting to more unlocks and less permanent buys where you got to leave things in the mail or that sort of thing. I think just the way we're managing some of the inventory is going to change, I think, in a positive way. Yeah,
and extending. I thought people were teasing me about the 3D glasses, so I might as well put them on. The follow-up question to that then is not just clothes, but in general to weapons and stuff like that. Especially with the current system that we have now, is that people like Kempington, who has 120 guns and he can't get anymore, and he also has to search through them in there's a whole list. You can drill down into subcategories like rifle, assault rifle, launchers, less than lethal. Is there any way that we're going to be able to actually just have a search for that as well? And what are your thoughts on the current UI
it's
for interacting?
It's on the list. It's on the list. We've got to fix it. I think Real-Time Worlds never contemplated this many guns in the game, and so what we're seeing is just a system pushed to the limits that it just was never designed to house this level of content. For 10 years, this game's been going on. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary, and so I think just we've got to improve that system per today's standards and the amount of content we have in the game.
I'm having to demonstrate quite live the max symbols that we have right now, which is 50. I have too many in my inventory, so I'm having to delete one.
They run out.
So it kind of it kind of demonstrates what I personally feel about the sim. Like the storage is good, but when you're a creative type, you have to juggle them around, and there's a lot of people that actually just use the mail system for storage like that. So
which is terrible, right? I mean, I know they're doing what they have to do, but the fact that they have to abuse a different system to try to do that is terrible.
Exo actually put a good question in the chat. The shotgun crosshairs, they?
That's got to get fixed. It's got to get fixed. I think that got carried over from the console code. It's just something we haven't looked at. But I'm not 100%, but I believe the crosshairs just need to be fixed.
Let me see now. Is there a possibility, like in CS:GO, we have custom crosshairs that you can change? So for colorblind people, it's extremely important. They might not be able to even see the crosshair in the first place. Properly due to their colorblindness. Is there a possibility that we can edit the crosshair to within a certain degree, of course, to be able to have a personal preference, and B, can we accommodate those who are less fortunate?
Yeah, colorblindness has come up quite a bit. We have a member of our staff who is colorblind, so it's something that we talk about, when we have time for it. I would put custom crosshairs again down the list a bit, just because we have so many other pressing critical needs. But my hope is that we're at that level doing that kind of work soon, because that means we've crossed everything else off our list in terms of matchmaking and phasing and district allocation and a bunch of other things. Thank you, Hacksterlicious.
Actually, the other thing is on my head. I just come up with when we were doing the testing for the benchmarking.
Yep.
A lot of people were actually asked me directly, is this just because that you have an 16 thread 8-core processor, or will the multi-threading benefit those who are, let's say, a quad-core or an octa-core, for instance, with hardware threading? As current hardware is, like the Intel stack is 6 threads, 8 threads, 12 threads. Will the multi-threading benefit these people as well? And, not just those who are able to brute force it with more cores, really.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think as long as you have, more than 2, you're going to benefit from multi-threading, and most hardware today is above 2. So I think we've seen benefits on, benefits at 8. I know my machine has, umpteen a bunch, but I definitely think even lower end systems will benefit from the multi-threading code.
And that is sort of from day one as well, where you'd be able to see the difference and, well, not hear the difference, but be able to feel the difference and see the difference.
Yep.
The three feel, see, and hear.
Yep.
Let's see now. One person asked a question of how many leftover assets are there that we could potentially use, or is available to Elo to be able to be used?
There's quite a bit. The first one that I'd love to see go in the game is the new car that they did, which is an entirely new car. It's not a kit, and so it's lacking a little bit of polish. And we need to, as a company, we have not yet dialed in getting a car into the game because it was never glued up in the data. So it's just something we haven't had a ton of time to finalize. Because again, we got a couple other things, just higher priority things. But I definitely would like to see that going. So the new car, there might be a little bit of gun assets. I don't think it's a complete gun, but there's some stuff floating around in there. We had the 2 new contacts, which were fully voiced already when we took over. So I'm excited about those 2 new contacts going in. And I mean, I think we've exhausted most of the clothing. I don't think there's any clothing sitting around. What are you doing, SKay?
I wrote in high as a simple editor because all my symbols are locked off. I can't open them.
Yeah. To Rectigator, I don't know. You're asking a good question about the copying designs from a car that has 1 slot to a car that has 2 slots. It's something we need to take care of, but it's a little bit further down the list. The question about contacts. There's 2 new contacts. We have a new, the EMP is the biggest, newest thing on them, which I think we've talked about briefly, but there's a brand new little bit of gameplay we're introducing there, anti-vehicle gameplay with the EMP. They do have weapons on them. We're pulling weapons that were maybe paid only or off of Armis and putting them on the new contacts, and then I think they have some new clothing, which hasn't been shown yet.
And any idea when that would come?
That'll be final launch of the engine. So we're going to go through those stages I mentioned earlier. Phase 1, which is just Asylum and Social, and then phase 2 being the addition of all the rest of the districts, and for beta, and then the final launch. So on the final launch, we're hoping to put all that into the game, so people will have something new to actually play.
Perfect. Do you want to talk about the SSAO and the recent exploits that you guys had? Because I know you guys have had a few challenges recently, and you've talked with us about it. Detail, but I'll let you sort of describe it yourself, really. About the ambient occlusion? Yeah, about the ambient occlusion. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just some weirdness here. I mean, basically, and you can see it. The ambient occlusion's turned on. It's better. We've been dialing it in, so it's 100% better than it was. One of the biggest problems we have right now is there's a flicker that happens when you change field of view. So one of the kind of cooler parts is that Real-Time Worlds put in is when you run, the field of view of the game changes, which makes it feel so kind of cool when you run. You go from a standing to running. That causes a problem with AO. So we're in the process of tweaking that and potentially upgrading that. We've got some new variations of AO that we want to kind of pull in. So that's gonna be tweaking. Is that Pound who's fooling around in the background there?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can switch to this and see what we're talking about, because it's worth one thing. It's worth one thing explaining to people. Oh yeah, we are seeing SSAO and ambient occlusion happening live, but it's another thing to be able to see it.
I think it'd be interesting to actually show it, because this is something, it's incredibly hard to dial in. I like the look of what we have right now. Again, we've spent some time on it. We did some pre-footage here. So everybody who's fooling around in social, we're going to cut away. We're going to show some footage here, but just to kind of show off some of the stuff that we see that isn't necessarily available in the engine. But this right now, and it's a little dark. I apologize. We took this last minute, but this is just some footage kind of showing what the SSAO looks like all on its own, and the kind of the benefits you're getting of just how it kind of syncs or grounds everything. And what you're going to see is the flicker, and the flicker is what we're combating right now. It's from when you run and the field of view changes, and then you stop running. And so you can see here back and forth how the AO, that ambient occlusion, is helping just ground the scene. And again, it's not final. I'm happier with this. This is the best it's actually ever looked. So it's better. But and I think, in fact, if you guys go look at the old if you look at the old screenshots, we didn't have any AO at all. It was completely broken. So so this is a little better. We're just kind of showing off the different different views here, where you can kind of see the various levels. It's all done in real time. And so this is going to get a little bit of an upgrade, I think, before we actually launch, but it's coming along. Yeah, without it looks very flat. The game just looks, you can do a lot with lighting, you do a lot with shadows and things, but really AO is what gives it a little bit of that depth.
And the depth is important, especially with something like this, because it gives gravity to the 3D space as well.
Everything gets weight, absolutely.
Yeah, and we don't have the footage of if it was just without SSAO, but with normal, with everything else turned on, you'd actually be able to see the biggest difference being that everything kind of looks flat, like it was back in 2008, 2009. It would look close to what the current engine is looking like right now.
Yeah,
but even further beyond that as well. So we're just in the loop here, but do we also want to show the comparison between live and 3.5, especially with this character?
We could do some of that. I think that I actually really enjoyed some of the streamer reactions when they got in for the first time. A couple of them messaged me directly. I think we're a little jaded. We've been looking at this forever, it feels like, and so it was nice to get some fresh eyeballs on it. Again, I would love to keep doing some of this as we introduce new districts and things.
That's a bit too large. canvas size is 1440p, so it's a bit difficult.
I see in the chat here while you're setting up the name release. So let's talk about that, the name release. We're switching gears a little bit. The name release is still going to happen in a way. We're gonna go through and clean out some of the old names. We want to give people enough time to come claim them. Specifically, what we're going to do though is we're going to change the strategy of names so that we can allow for someone to have effectively conflicting names. It's similar to what happens on Discord. I think there's just as things have improved over time. People, servers and new systems have come up with better ways to handle naming in general. So we're taking a little bit of a page from other systems to figure out a better way to handle naming. Yes, and by the way, someone commented on the game volume. The audio in the game, in terms of the new release, we have not touched that at all. So know that there was a lot of bad volume happening in the game, namely with the Joker ammo boxes, the boiler room. We let streamers know in advance. We just couldn't quite get to that prior to the stream.
A bit of a change of gears, but will the clan system be expanded once the new engine goes live?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was, will the clans... So the current system for clans is that you just invite somebody to your clan. That's it.
Yeah.
Will there be an expansion to sort of encourage people to join up in clans and try and sense of foster, family within the community?
We definitely want to do more with that. Absolutely. The answer is yes. The question is just timing and what those features will be exactly. There needs to be some design there. But yeah, I mean, I think that we don't do a good enough job of helping people get better, right? And having their sort of family in game and having there be just a benefit to clans. So the first set of shots there that SKay was showing was the live. And then I think you loaded the same car in here and you're driving around the new engine. Obviously a little slightly different time of day. We did make some adjustments in time of day just to tune in the look a little bit. There's some times of day I think in live where the screen, for lack of a better term, becomes a little faded.
Let's see now. Oh, we have had a few more questions from our community manager. He asks, is the anti-aliasing methods being investigated currently?
Yep.
As in, is there more types of anti-aliasing being implemented? I know NVIDIA and AMD have their own versions of anti-aliasing. Are you guys looking into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any active anti-aliasing right now. I think it got broke in the engine upgrade. So when they were doing work prior to us, so we're still going through and cleaning that up. I think that'll make the game look obviously a lot better. But it's work in progress. Absolutely, we're looking at like you said, some of the individual methods that can be done on the card or cheaper.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of being able to sort of sound design and all that kind of thing, will the new vehicles also have new and old vehicles, will they all have a pass to see if we can integrate better sounds for them? Not more so just in engine, but more so in general. Like people prefer the old Vegas sound because it was a higher pitch and was much more natural to them. Yeah. The idea being that when Reloaded slammed the audio range from a very sort of high frequency to a more lower bassier frequency, people didn't like that change. So will there be a review of the current sounds that engines produce, as well as weapons? Will we see something akin to that in the new engine?
Yeah, that's a great question. The truth is, I know the part of the team is jumping into audio. We're upgrading the audio engine in general, so that'll get an upgrade. As much as we can take advantage of those features, I think we want to. I don't know how much we'll be able to go, weapon by weapon or car by car. Although, I mean, I agree that sound makes a big difference in this game. I give credit to R2W. You walk around with an ogre. It's a very satisfying experience. Because they did so much great work on syncing up sound versus some of the other elements in the game. We don't use Fmod, by the way. We use WiiWise or WWise, but it is being upgraded to the latest engine or the version.
Let me see now. The spawn system. Will that also have a look at?
We made a lot of improvements to the spawn system for Riot, and then obviously had to pull that back. So that's one of the things I'd like to reintegrate with some of what we're doing just for regular gameplay. But I don't know that's going to happen prior to the full launch. Again, it's kind of on that list. It's something we want to deal with and make better. It's a tricky problem to solve because there's, it's all about view distance and what you can see versus, other characters. So trying to make that work is tricky. We have some limitations on the spawn points.
Sorry, just to cut across, but the Road Rocker says there's a criminal behind me. It's actually not. It's actually La Rocha.
There's a badge right there.
Oh yeah, there is actually. There's a badge right there.
Yeah.
This is more of a sort of a sidestep. Will we see a return of Riot, or will we see a return of its core functionality in a new light?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I think there are some interesting subsystems in Riot. It was not a very well received or frankly, a perfectly executed mode. So I don't think so. I think we'll have to, but I do want to take. There's just there are some pieces that I really like. Someone mentioned the map from Riot, which is also, there are some very cool map changes. The downside to the Riot map is you can't have vehicles, so it's definitely a different feel. Trying to run across that district is tricky because you can't jump into a car.
Somebody was just asking a technical stream next time. Do we want to jump into some technical questions now and see what your thoughts are?
Sure. We're happy to jump in.
I know somebody was asking a few technical questions before,
Yep.
and we kind of just glossed over them, but we'll come back to them. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
So
there's a lot of questions going here.
There is.
I'll try to kind of like watch a little bit, but fire away.
So the first technical, or it's to get our feet wet with the questions for technicality's sake. What kind of work went into sort of improving the systems that you have improved today? What kind of testing did you have to do? What kind of braking did you have to do? How far did you go?
I feel like there are a couple places, but I feel like we've dug into almost every piece of this engine, right or wrong. I mean, I think I think the feature system is a great example. So when you're running around financial, for instance, the way that we handle distance and interactivity in a building is a subsystem that was written from scratch, and they did not port that up correctly. The way they ended up doing features ended up being kind of pushed in a way that got the game live on console, but did not work. And so we went in to go make some tweaks there and just found, what was there, and it was a rewrite. I mean, we just had to rewrite that entire system. And so, I mean, there are other systems that are equally, we're just sort of digging into and saying, all right, this is not what we wanted to do in this moment, right? The frustrating thing is when we have a schedule we're aiming towards and a launch release date that we have internally, and then you hit this rabbit hole of stuff that you have to fix. And so, it's a bummer, but I mean, there are a number of systems that we have had to just rewrite from the ground up, literally rewrite. And the rendering system is one of them. We're not using the Unreal render system. It was completely gutted and rewritten. So it does have the same materials and inputs from Unreal 3.5, but the rendering itself is completely custom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the rendering system, that definitely, like when we were doing the testing for that definitely did have a lot of ups and downs.
Oh yeah,
we were
very
we were having a lot of sort of tug of wars with it, just trying to come on, we need to bring it this way, and then it kind of just did the opposite on us. A flip flop. Me and you spent many.
You bring up something. I will say this: every time we think the engine's going to do something, you can pretty much expect it does the opposite. It's the weirdest phenomenon where we're like, "Hey, we think we made an optimization," then it just goes the different direction. It's very, very complex. There's a lot there. SKay and many of the SBCT members have had a front row seat to the ups and downs of the dev team saying, hey, we cracked the code. No, we didn't. Hey, we did this. No, we didn't. And then, it's trial and error and just sheer determination to get it across the finish line.
Yeah. So just break from the advertising question or the technical questions, the advertising questions.
Yep.
What kind of advertising do you want to see in the game? Do you know, like, I would think back to the greatest thing that I've seen come out of APB for advertising sake is the Be All You Can't Be, that had the YouTuber and the influencers come in and do that kind of thing. We probably won't see that immediately, or that kind of level of influencer involvement immediately. But what kind of ad would you like to see on the big screen or on the small screen?
Sure. I personally, I love that video. The Be All You Can't Be. I think we're going to be doing some stuff with that in a smaller way. But there's a whole, I think, series of marketing steps. And I've seen this question kind of come up on the feed here. And that is, when are we going to start advertising, or when are we going to start marketing the game? And I think that's a three-prong approach there. I think there's some stuff we're actually going to start immediately right now. I would love to build up the Jericho player base right now. So we're going to be doing some very specific marketing to East Coast and West Coast former players to let them know that we've got dedicated servers now in LA and New York. Latency's great. They're fast servers, and we'd love to see them more populated. So I think there will be some direct marketing that is really designed to it's an awareness campaign. I think you got to see a little bit. I think you're in the know a little bit on what that looks like and some of those ad campaigns, that sort of thing. So that's the first one, and then the second one will be around the beta, and just creating awareness around the beta. Again, just paid advertising on all the standard places. We're partnered with Google on some things and some other partners there, and then ultimately just the full launch. That's where I think we can really invest, because we've sort of delivered something that I think fans of this game have been waiting for a very long time. So I think you'll see those three things. One, right now we're about to start some marketing around New York and LA, and then the beta as we roll that out, and then the final launch.
Perfect. Yeah.
I think by the way, and I have seen a couple comments about dethreading, and I'm gonna echo what Kaida said, and that is, I think dethreading is a multi-sided issue, and I think that I'm gonna be optimistic. Let's say I think most people dethreat because they can't get matched in gold, or they can't get matched in the district they want. There are some there that want to go grief newbies, which is just awful, right, for the game. Like, we want our new players have it rough enough. Please don't dethreat down to bronze and start taking out newbie characters. That's not fun. But we're hoping that the changes to district allocation, phasing, and some of the things we're doing with matchmaking will vastly improve this, because the big problem is you have the server in peak time and you have the server in off peak time, and you can't have the same level of discretion in terms of how threat works, because you won't get good matches. So sort of collapsing districts down to keep a high player population, and expanding the bands that make up threat, so you just get matches in general. And then as peak happens, you slice and dice those down further, and you got more servers now, but you have a lot tighter band of what the threat level should be. So the concept, I think, of threat is really going to go away, and that's another thing. I don't think the threaters will have a clear target. There's not going to be necessarily like, oh, I'm silver, I need to dethreat to bronze. Like that marker is not going to be there, so it's just going to be a little more tricky to do.
Yeah, I think the threading has been an issue for many years, and segregation was used as a method to try and solve something like that, but it kind of just did the opposite. As you said before, when you're expecting the engine to do something, it did the opposite. When you want the community to do something, it did the opposite in that case.
Yeah.
But it's not a case
of... To Xenon, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. He's been spamming the question, so they have been spamming the question. I believe that's been looked at. I think there's a number of things with timers and syncing on the processor or to hardware as opposed to syncing arbitrarily or to another standard. And so I think that's been addressed. A lot of the timing on the new client is very different. Just how it's handled is almost entirely different. Sorry, keep going, SKay.
Mm-hmm. The idea is that let me see now. Will we see a improvement to the social interactions for the community as a whole? Will we see more implemented in that sort of area?
I hope so. I mean, look, we're sort of learning as we go. This is still, we're 2 years in. It's still somewhat new. I know we want to. I'll say this. I've already said it on the forums. We want to open the Little Orbit Discord to support players coming on and chatting with the devs from time to time, or just with themselves. I know it's a big thing for me in terms of just opening a place for people to be able to talk in real time as opposed to forums. Forums are a little bit outdated. I mean, they're handy for keeping track of an ongoing conversation, but just getting on and getting matches or finding players, I think I would love to see that happen as soon as humanly possible. We are short moderators right now. We're short the staff to be able to man something like a Discord 24/7. So we're not going to open until we can properly moderate it. I don't want it. I want it to be a good player experience, not something that just ends up being very toxic. From another social type perspective, I definitely am going to keep doing the blogs every Friday and Saturday. I post CS stats on Friday and I do engine upgrade type stuff on Saturdays. But I definitely think someone's mentioned the Reddit and an AMA there, and just being more accessible and trying to plan more of these, doing more streams. I would like this to not be a once in a blue moon thing, that something we can do on a regular basis so that people can come and kind of see where we're at.
By the way, I think this came down the line here. Will there be any openings for the SPCT?
Yes, I'm going to say we're right at the cusp of that. The main group has done a fantastic job, and for various reasons we kept that somewhat locked down. We've not been introducing new people to the group just at the moment, but I definitely think moving forward in the near future, I would love to see that team be much larger. I think I'd love to see the mentoring team come back as well, to help kind of provide a little bit of new player, help.
Let's move on to makes a organization. Let me think now.
I will say, Segrin is asking, can we have a way to earn G1C without paying? I don't think you'll ever be able to get G1C without paying. I think we are all in on trying to make Joker tickets more viable. They are, in some ways, we can think of them as kind of the paid currency of APB. You got APB dollars you can earn, and Joker tickets. I think we're trying to shift into a mode where G1C is outside the game. It's Armis and it's account unlock, whereas Joker tickets is character unlocked and earnable. And so all of the content hopefully can be unlocked on a character level with Joker tickets.
Joker tickets, that'll actually smooth us on nicely. What can we expect with Joker tickets?
There's a lot there. We've been gradually making changes to Joker tickets. That's one of the bigger places we've actually made changes to. There are more coming. I think we've been very conservative there because it's tied directly to things that have earned us and the company money and kept the game afloat. So we want to be somewhat careful, but we've tried to also really take a hard look at stuff and try to make it less abusive, less heavily monetized, and try to add ways to for people to collect the guns just through Joker tickets, right? And so we need to get more clothing in there. We need to get more stuff off of Armis and into the Joker ticket store. One thing we're working on is a redesign of the Joker ticket store entirely. So when you go to social, there's going to be that whole area is going to get remodeled to better showcase what we have there for players. It's right now it's just this tiny little menu, and you have to kind of scroll through it to kind of find things. It's even as few things as we have in the Joker store now, it's still pretty cluttered. So we want a slightly better experience there for people to go find stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The
So someone's asking about, I think, September for the engine. It's funny. I put out dates in the past, and then we, for various reasons, we have not hit those dates. I will be very, very disappointed if we don't get this engine update out by September. That I want it out a lot sooner than that.
Will there be an AI implementation into the new engine?
That's a great question. It's not in the works yet. I would love to see a small amount of PvE content in the game. There's just some things I'd love to do for the new player, actually. But I think at its heart, APB is a PvP game, and there's a reason why RTW didn't put an AI system in the game. So we don't want to make it any heavier than it already is.
Define heavier.
Meaning the client has a lot going on, right? And we talked about the clunkiness of the UI and the game loop, which cause frame rate issues. The last thing I want to do is introduce yet another system like AI that's going to cause slowdowns and frame rate issues because your computer is processing that stuff in the background. So we're trying to streamline that stuff so we can get really good frame rates out of it. That's most of our issues right now with the frame rate are game loop and UI based.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me see if the community has any other questions. Let me see now.
For Lavic UC, I don't know. I know they've been asking the same question about the ghosting feature. I have no idea if that's in the works or not. Sorry.
Let me see now. The game will. Sorry, go ahead.
When I speak to Tziki, pronouncing some of these names, he was asking about the Netherlands and Joker boxes and kind of our reworking of that. There are ongoing plans there. Again, we're taking it very slowly, but there definitely is a plan in the works, fairly close in, that we're hoping will allow Netherlands to get Joker boxes.
Will the game be as CPU heavy as this is leading back into more the multi-threading? Will people see a much higher increase in the CPU usage of the game as it goes to release?
Yeah, I think I was just talking with Kemp. I mean, I think we've seen in general, right? I mean, you can never take advantage fully of all those cores and processors, but I think the current live game, at least on my Ryzen setup, I'm using like 40% of the CPU, sometimes less. It just, the live game is just not really capable of taking advantage of that kind of a machine. I've seen, at least in the new engine, around 70%. So pretty big uptick there in terms of how much of the CPU we can use. Same thing with GPU usage. I've definitely seen an increase in what we can, get out of the GPU in terms of performance. So I would say absolutely people should see a lot higher utilization of both the CPU and GPU.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Will cosmetic configs be a thing?
Cosmetic contacts or conflicts? I'm sorry, what did you say?
A cosmetic config. Will that be implemented?
That's a great question. I don't know. That's I'm sure it's been talked about. I don't have a lot of that stuff kind of drops way down. I know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Let me see now.
I know someone's asking about like will the engine update make customizations more accurate? Yeah, we previewed that earlier. I think customizations definitely look better in the engine upgrade at a kind of like, we'll call it like HD level. So. I think we're gonna have to wind it down. I know I've got to get going here at about 1:30. I appreciate everybody coming out, by the way, and I apologize if I haven't been able to get to your question.
Does threat, as it currently stands, will that stay the same as it is, or will that be expanded or contracted based on?
I think we're looking at threat. I know a lot of people say, well, go back to the old threat methods, the new threat's bad, or this. I don't think the threat itself is bad. I think just how we handle it, player population and other external factors, make the threat system not so great. And so I talked about this earlier in the stream. I think the threat system's getting a massive look, and what we know of really today as pure, like, you've got like 10 bands in gold and 10 bands in silver and those sort of things. I think some of that will remain behind the scenes. It's just not going to be surfaced as much to players. A lot of that's going to be a little more dynamic, where we can grow or shrink some of those threat levels based on population.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll call this one the final one. So
okay, I saw Music Studio. I don't think we've made any changes to Music Studio. I know it's being added, and has been added. It works in the new engine upgrade. It was cut entirely from the console, so it works. I don't know if there's any significant changes there, but I know it's in the engine. Go ahead.
Will we see an update to the physics?
Probably not. I think physics is so embedded into Unreal 3.5, and we're in this weird trapped little box where we're kind of, we've got physics on one side and we've got Scaleform on the other side, and we've got, there's certain things we can do and certain things we can't. So there may be an opportunity downstream where we've disconnected some of these pieces a little bit, and we can rip that out and put it in. I know there's a lot of benefits to newer implementations of physics or newer physics systems, and I can think of, right off the top of my head, I can think of 5 basic things that the existing physics system doesn't do well. But I think for the time being, we're sort of stuck with it. It's really, really embedded into the engine.
Okay. Well, I did say that was the final question, so.
All right, I appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you, SKay, for hosting. I know. Did you give away all the codes? Have we given those away?
I have given away all the codes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope people had a good time watching the stream. If you guys have recommendations for the future, certainly you're welcome to go to the forums, talk about the stream, and talk about what you'd like to see in the future. Like I said, I'd like to do more of these, and we're kind of making an effort right now to kind of just get this stuff in front of the community as soon as possible.
Okay, I think we can end it there for the guys. What else can we say other than thanks, guys, for sticking around? Thanks for answering our questions, Matt.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. And there he goes. And there he goes. All right, guys. That's it for me. It's the end of the QA and Q&A. Thanks for coming along. It's been an absolute treat giving you guys a great Q&A. Hopefully you guys get the questions out. All right, guys. Take care.